she skipped something. I said it was fine. Thank you guys so much for being here. And I know there is a large number of people here who are just my friends and just wanted to be supportive, have checked out Arbonne years ago, but are just here to be kind. And I am so appreciative of all of you. And I won't make you stand up. Some of you might not like to do that, but just thank you so much for coming out tonight and braving the weather and being here just to be good friends. I really appreciate it. I am a storyteller. That's really what I do. My family is here, they're in the second row, and they can tell you that I always have a story to tell. And I can turn just about anything into a story. And I was so excited to do my presentation in a theater, because my background is also as an actor. And I didn't really want to stand up in a hotel room. I thought it would be more fun to be here in a theater on a stage, where lots of cool stories get told. And I had a great story, because we were supposed to be upstairs, where a Scottish play is going on, and had an inappropriate backdrop for Arbonne. So I'm so glad that we're here. And we moved down here, and Roni said to me, like, oh, in true Sarah Russell style, we have a story to tell about getting this done. So I'm going to tell you a little story just about me and Arbonne and finishing this big promotion, and then I'm going to recognize my team and give away a lot of presents, because I just got a lot of presents, so I'm going to give a bunch away. So I actually technically started Arbonne 6 years ago, which does not make me the fastest person in Arbonne. You can tell everyone. You met the girl that took 6 years to get to Regent. And I'm going to tell you a part of why that is. I was introduced at a party, and like Roni, my skin was pretty sensitive, and so I had sort of given up on product. But I wanted to be really supportive of my friend, Blair Robertson, who is still super supportive of me. So I tried some products, and I really did see a big difference in my skin, and it wasn't turning red. And I was like, oh, I could actually use these products. I really like them. And there was a little voice in the back of my head that thought, you would probably be good at that. I bet you could do that. You could probably sell Arbonne. And I was working at the time, near full-time hours, for options traders, index equity options traders. So if you are like most people, 3 of those words made no sense to you. But I was in the financial market, working on the floor of the Chicago Board's Option Exchange, and I was sort of a combination of executive assistant, human resources clerk. I worked for a really small company, and I was often the only female there. And I worked for a company where we just traded the owner's money. And we literally got sat down and told, like, we don't make widgets here, we make money. So I wasn't in the best environment. It didn't really sit right with me. And I didn't want to be there anymore, and I felt like I was missing theater to be there. And I had that voice in the back of my head that was like, maybe you could do that Arbonne thing. So I signed up, and I did it sort of as a hobby for a year. And I made a little extra money every month, and I spent it every month. I just did it on the side with my friend Blair. And I was also expecting my son Owen, who you guys, he maybe picked out your seat for you when you he's now 5, but I was expecting him at the time. And then, for ladies in the room who understand this, when I was about 39 weeks pregnant, my husband was laid off. And I tell everyone, this was 2008, and everybody was going through this. We were not unique, but we were having our first child. And I had already made the decision to only work 10 hours a week for those traders, because I was going to be home with my son. So I had to choose whether I was going to go back to that environment and say, you know what, I need all my hours back, just kidding. Or I could take this thing I had in my back pocket and actually make it work. And at that point, Roni reached out to me and said, could I coach you? And I was like, perfect timing. This is the situation that I'm in. I got a 3-month-old, and yeah, I've had this Arbonne ID for a year, but sure, I would like to make some money. And so within a year, I replaced the 40% pay cut I had taken at that job and was able to keep my family afloat as we went through our changes. So my husband worked the whole time. He picked up all different jobs. He was even able to start his own business. We later decided to close that business, but over the past few years, I feel like we've been able to make a lot of great choices, and Arbonne has been able to fill in the gaps. So I always tell everyone it's really important for me to communicate that Arbonne works a long time before you get the car. depending on what your magic number is, the kind of money that you want to bring in, I was able to keep my family afloat by making money nights and weekends. We didn't have to pay for full-time childcare. So if you've ever done the math about your paycheck and what's coming home after taxes and then you subtract full-time childcare, you know what I'm talking about. That's the number that we had to replace. So once I was able to do that and make money without us having to pay a babysitter, Arbonne was working. And I was comfortable there. And it was enough. And that's where we were for the past few years. And I always told that story. I stood up at Discover Arbonne. It's like, I'm replace my income. We're totally fine. Everything's great. What I did not always share is that we continued to struggle. For the past 3 years, we have lived paycheck to paycheck. We've been unable to put money away. And since my family has always been a huge priority for me, I was okay with that. I got to be at playgroup with my son. I got to take him to the zoo in the middle of the week. I got to volunteer at my church. And these were all things that I could not do if I was stuck in an office all day. I wouldn't have traded that time for any amount of money. But when my son went to kindergarten this year, and we realized, yes, we're going to take this preschool tuition out of our budget. It was exciting. This big bill was going to come out of our budget because he's starting kindergarten. And my Arbonne paycheck went down that exact amount. And so when I saw that paycheck, I had to acknowledge the fact that I had figured out how to work just enough. I had figured out how to work just enough to keep our family afloat. I am the daughter of a pastor. I went to a small, private liberal arts school on full scholarship where I went into culture shock among the upper class. I chose to get a degree in the fine art of acting. I married a carpenter, and I moved to Chicago, bound and determined to work for art and never be famous. I had carefully constructed an identity around struggling. And looking at that paycheck that went down exactly the amount of tuition, I had to acknowledge that that struggle had become a source of pride for me, that I was seeking out struggle. I was frustrated with myself. I was wondering why I was doing just enough and why I hadn't taken my business to the next level. And I was scared to see who I would be without a struggle. But I thought about being a storyteller. And my husband and I had so many talks after our son was born. What story do we want to tell him? We don't want to tell him you give up on your dreams after you have a kid. What story do we want him to know? You're laughing, but I know a lot of actors, right? They have a kid and then that's it, it's done. So what story do we want to tell him? And I thought about a lot of good stories. There aren't very many good stories that are like, she struggled, she struggled, she struggled, she died. Great stories are about those who overcome. The great stories are about the triumph in the midst of adversity. So, in October, when we decided to go for Region as a team, I hit a whole lot of obstacles. But I tried to remember the story that I wanted to tell. I remember that nothing is impossible, and that to get through the month, I was going to have to rely on faith. And I told my team that I have read, as many of you, that if you have faith as tiny as a mustard seed, you can move a mountain, that nothing is impossible for you. And I said, I have faith so much bigger than a mustard seed. So please believe in me. And we qualified for Region. And in November, I had to rely even more on that faith to get us through. One of my first jobs when I moved to Chicago was doing a one-woman show about Helen Keller. Please think about that for a second. And I carried all of my equipment. We had a Chevy S10 pickup truck, and I had all of my stage equipment for the show, and I drove myself to every show. And I'm a little bit older than I look. And we didn't have GPS or anything like that. I would print out my directions before I left the house to try to get from school to school. And all the time, I would think I was lost. I think I hadn't got there yet, or I had missed a turn, or why was I not at this school yet? So I would pull over and check my map, or go to a gas station and ask somebody where I was. And it would always turn out that I was on the right road, I just had not gone far enough. In my business, all the time, I pulled over, exited, checked my map, asked someone which road to get on, but every single time I was going the right way, I just hadn't gone far enough. I kept pulling over too early. So instead of trusting my instincts or my knowledge or my skills, I pulled over. But finally, in November, I never pulled over. I worked my business each day without hesitation, knowing that we would finish region. I tell everyone I will not share with you the numbers that we did in the last 2 days of the month, because it's embarrassing. And it's a miracle. They're miraculous. There's no logical way that my team could have done the numbers we did, but we did. And what happened is, just like is happening in this room tonight, so many people from all over the country called me to place orders. Friends and family who'd never ordered from me before were happy to pitch in and help. Teammates who had long since given up on their business ran around collecting orders to put them in. And what I realized and what brought me to tears is that I was loved and supported in a way I did not even acknowledge before. And knowing that struggle was such a big part of my identity, it was so hard to accept all of that generosity. So I would like to remind all of you tonight, since it's my party, that whether or not you do Arbonne, the struggles in this life can lead to joy. The struggles in this life are worth it, and you do not need to pull over. When you have decided on your purpose, when you've determined what that is, you do know where you're going. Hold on to your faith. Rest in the truth that you are loved and you are supported. And if no one has ever told you that before, I want to be the one that tells you you are loved and you are supported. I am so, so thankful for what Arbonne has brought into my life. And I am even more excited about what's coming in the future. I'm so happy that you guys are here tonight, and I'm ready to start thanking people and recognizing my team. So I'm just going to ask my mom and dad to wave, at least if they don't want to stand up. But my mom and dad are in the and they flew here from Florida where it's like 80 degrees. And all their friends are literally posting beach pictures on Facebook. So I know I am loved. I'm very, very proud of them. It means so much to me that they would come here tonight for this presentation. They stocked up on plenty of protein and RA9 to help me finish in November. But most importantly, I learned from both of my parents how to be a servant leader. And I've watched them both build careers with strength and grace, determination, and the hearts of servants. I'm continually impressed by their accomplishments. I'm very proud to say they're my mom and dad. My husband, John, is here tonight. And we've been married just over 11 years. And people always ask me what it was like to get married at 16. People don't ask me that. They do ask me what it was like to get married so young. And I always just say that when you're going through your 20s and you're married, it means that you're going to change and your spouse is going to change. You're going through all the things that you would go through in your 20s, even if you're alone. But John has loved me and supported me through my entire ride with Arbonne, through all of those changes. It's nice to have someone with you going through all those changes. He's been super supportive. And in October, when I was so frustrated and nobody would return my phone calls or book a party, he said, well, I guess you could keep calling people or you could quit. He likes to just tell it like it is. And I appreciate that so much about him, to just put it in perspective. And then my son Owen, I would like to thank, even though he's not here anymore, because he's really my inspiration and why I got started and why I'm committed to growing this business even bigger. He puts stickers on my catalogs and he will tell you all about Arbonne. And he thinks his mom is a really great teacher. And I ran a race in November. November was a big month for me. And he made a poster board for me that just said, "Go mom, go mom, go mom, go mom," over and over and over. So I just leave that up in my office because it reminds me just to keep going. So I also want to thank all the VPs in the room who called me all month and even the past 2 months trying to get this party put together and offered me guidance and support. So I would just like them to stand up when I say their names. So ERVP Lydia Gray. And RVP Anu Rock. And RVP Melanie Keller. And ERVP, holy cow, Natalie Meir. And our brand new RVP, Matt Raftery. I think there's like so many regions right now that every time I pass a white Mercedes, I'm like, is that my friend? Also, me and Carrie live 2 blocks from each other, so we're always like, hey, white Mercedes, hey. Okay, so that brings me to my upline. First, I have a present for Guy. Guy and I just met today. But I'm so glad you came.